it seems it has come to the point in which I shall finally talk about Vast. Now, there are actually two versions of this game. There is Vast the Crystal Caverns, and then there is also Vast the Mysterious Manor. And before you go ahead and ask, yes, I actually own both of these games. Now, one thing that's really funny is that whenever I'm at conventions, one of the more common questions that I get asked is, what are my favorite leader games projects from like top to bottom? And it always never surprises anybody that Root is my favorite game of all time, so of course it's my top leader game. But one that always confuses people is the fact that my second favorite of all time, and still to this day is true, is Vast the Crystal Caverns. And Vast the Mysterious Manor is a lot like that game. It is basically the same. It's a re-implementation. It's honestly cleaner, a bit more balanced, and that's going to be the one that we're going to be talking about in more detail today. And if you don't know what these Vast games are, let's just talk about it right now. This is the type of game that, you know, when you're looking at the rule book, you can always tell when a game is crazy when you look through the rule book and it starts telling you something about it. So for example, if you open up here, you've got, you know, golden rules, components, you know, all simple stuff, how to play, attacking enemies, few concepts. So now we're actually in like the how to play portion. That's just 2 pages. And then it moves straight from kind of how to play the game into just a full page of one of the rules, which in this case is the Paladin. And then the next roll, the skeletons, and then the next roll, the spider, and then the next roll, the manor, and then the last roll, the warlock. And then after that, you'd expect more rules. Nope, just examples, just, you know, difficulty variants, player counts and roll mixes, a solo mode page. So basically the fact that only 2 pages take up the rules of the game, and then the rest of this rule book is each of the different rules, like rule characters and factions that you can play, it's the rules for those, tells you that this game is completely asymmetric. These rules don't work anything like each other. So for example, in a game like Root, it really made things a little bit easier to get into comparatively, because you all kind of play with the same core structure of being able to kind of start from the top, go down to the bottom, do all of your things. And most of the time, a lot of those things are the same with slight changes and such. But Vast is a game where it's like, no, this is completely different for people. If you're playing the Paladin, this is a very different character than if you're playing the Spider, which is different from the Skeleton, which is different from the Manor, which is different from the Warlock. And so to give you guys an idea about this, I want to talk about each of these roles in a little bit of detail, because honestly, that is the game. So if you don't understand these rules, if you don't understand what you're getting into there, you probably won't know if you're gonna like this game or if you're absolutely going to hate it. So let's start with the beginning. Obviously, there is a mysterious manor, and the Paladin is walking into said manor from the entrance, and they have one goal in this game, and that is to defeat the Spider. And so they are actually going to be playing kind of an adventure game. They're going to be exploring with their crusade action. They're going to be lifting up tiles, placing them in the orientation that they want, revealing things like chests. They might reveal pits that skeletons can climb through. They might reveal blood tokens. They also can find shrines, and those shrines are going to allow them to kind of upgrade their abilities, get some stuff to where they can actually put some permanent upgrades on their character. Now they're going to be doing this with a system of cubes, so they're going to have a certain amount of these hero cubes, and on their turn they're going to be assigning these hero cubes on their board to do actions. And you're able to assign them in any order and pretty much at any time. So for example, you could assign a cube to crusade into a tile and reveal it, and then if you're encountering a monster like maybe a poltergeist, then you can actually put a cube immediately onto your strength to be strong enough to defeat said poltergeist. But on top of all of this, you have a grit track, and that grit track is basically your experience points, and that's going to give you more favor cards. It's also going to give you more hero cubes. And so your real big goal is to basically gain this experience. And why are you gaining all of this experience? Why are you collecting these favors? Why are you exploring this manor? Well, that's because your goal to win the game as the Paladin, literally, you have to slay the spider, the fell beast in this manor. And if you do so, you win the game as the Paladin. Now, playing the Paladin is quite different from playing, say, the Skeletons, because as the Skeletons, it's much more for those players that are looking for a little bit more of an operational game. You're going to be dealing with a couple of things. One is a resource called Stability, which can be spent for special abilities, and you can also use it to bring in more Skeletons in play, because you actually start the game off with 2 Skeletons, but you can have up to 5 of these bad boys. You're the only faction in the game that can move around the perimeter of the manor, so you actually get to go around the map very, very quickly. You can also walk on the crypt tiles. So while the Paladin has to walk on those lit tiles, the Skeletons are going to be crawling through the crevices of this floor. The other thing is there are these armory tiles that are set up at the beginning of the game, and if they go to these, they're going to be able to draw these armor cards, and each of these are going to basically be able to be added to their individual skeletons. So you can kind of spec up and upgrade each of your little skeletons and control this undead horde. Now, one of the things, as we know with skeletons, they don't like to be in the light. And so if they are in lit tiles at the beginning of your turn, you're going to be losing some of that resource called stability. You need to build up that stability to get a bigger army and to activate your effects properly. So each turn you're going to be going left to right, activating all of your skeletons. You're going to be moving around and you're going to be doing an action. Some of them will be collecting armor from the armories. Others might be gaining loot from treasure chests that you find, which will actually give you stability as the skeletons. But the most important action that you're trying to do is organize your army to make a strike on the Paladin. Because to win the game as the skeletons, you have to defeat and kill the Paladin. And the way that you do that is hilarious. You basically are all weak alone, but you are so strong together. And so you have to get all of your skeletons to surround the knight in order to have enough strength to be higher than their hero cubes on their strength. And if that's the case, you'll deal a health damage on them. And if you get that down to 0, you win as the skeletons. It is very satisfying, and the skeletons are probably one of my favorite factions in this game, and that makes a lot of sense because in Vast the Crystal Caverns, my main and my favorite, still to this day, was the goblins, and they really do kind of feel similar while being distinct. But then Patrick Leader is an absolute madman, and so we've got the spider. Oh, the spider! Oh man, it's the biggest headache faction. So as the spider, you are trying to gain 12 terror, and then you have to escape the manor through the front door, and that is how you win as the spider. You're just trying to run away. Honestly, they might be the true hero of this game because they just want to, well, okay, they are creating terror. Okay. Everybody here has multiple sides. Now you will have kind of more of a card management game as the spider. You'll actually have a hand of cards which will match a stat called Spirit, and each of these are going to be a different suit with a different ability. But at the beginning of your turn, you're going to be able to change form. And this is probably one of the craziest concepts of the spider, is that they are not just this giant spider. They are also a sorcerer, and they are also these little spiderlings. And before we go any further, those little spiderlings are actually your health points. So when you take a hit, you have to discard one of those little baby spiderlings, and once all 5 of them are gone, the Paladin wins. So you gotta be very careful with the little spider babies. And look at, they're so cute, they're just so cute. Ah, I love them, I love them. So I'm not going to go into all the depth of all the different forms, but what I will say is this. Each of these different roles that you can switch to throughout the game, they all have kind of a benefit or a strength because they can make any of those cards in your hand do one of your core actions. So for example, the eyes cards, this is going to allow you to reveal tiles. You want to reveal tiles because if you reveal the blood, you're going to start getting that blood, and you want to collect blood because if you collect blood, that's one of the ways that you can gain terror. You've also got fangs, which is going to allow you to attack to gain blood. Once again, to spend to gain terror. And you've also got webs, which you can place down to hinder the movement of other figures. And also, it's a way to get more terror as long as they're in spaces with your eggs. Which, before we get any more into it, eggs are just something that you can lay down as a little secondary resource to gain that terror. Now, I don't want to lose you here. I'm honestly losing myself getting into the weeds of this guy. There's like a whole thing that I want to go through. I want to give you a whole breakdown of each of these. And so honestly, if this is already interesting you, if it's piquing your interest, because if you're anything like me, you love these types of asymmetric games, y'all, you gotta like, you gotta make sure to comment and say, Sam, we gotta see all this, because I want to do this. I have a goal to revive Vast. We want to make Vast so big that they have to reprint it, or they just have to come and release a Vast 3, because this is a gem and people need to play this freaking game. But anyways, you're going to be doing actions, you're going to be playing some cards for those actions, and each different form has different ways that you can interact with each of these cards. They have different distances that you can reveal cards, different ways to attack, all while protecting your spiderlings, all while pumping blood into those eggs in order to make sure that you're gonna get more terror. And then you just gotta escape the manor. And if you do that, you win the game as the spider. And then we've got the manor, which I have a little bit of beef with, and that's mostly because I loved the cave in the original Vast the Crystal Caverns. Well, thankfully, the manor is very different than the cave, but I can't help but think I miss the cave. I miss the spindly little paths that could be created and the minute differences that you can make where you're actually putting down each of the tiles that was revealed in the Crystal Caverns. In this version, you're going to have all of the tiles be just in, piles, and they're going to be being explored in this big box, essentially. And as the manor, this is truly the faction that needs the most understanding of all the other factions in order to be competitive in the game. Because they really have a lot of leverage of ways to slow down other factions. They can kind of warp the game state to fit, and they can really help or hinder other factions. They are the ones that choose where chests arrive. They are the ones that will give the Paladin a treasure when they find a chest. So they choose what benefit to give them. They're like a game master, but at the same time, they're also playing a very unique spatial puzzle where they have to essentially follow through with these ritual cards. These ritual cards will show all of these different shapes and then benefits that you will get for completing said shape. And so you might want to make kind of like the movement in chess for a horse or a knight. You might want to make that, and then if you do, you will get certain benefits. If you're getting seals, that's one of your resources to win the game. You have to get 14 seals to win, but the other benefit might be portents. Now, these cute little light blue cubes are actually going to up some of your action economy as the manor, and so as you're doing all of the different actions that you can to manipulate the different tiles, you'll actually get a bigger benefit as you're kind of building up your engine. Now, these are all linked to different actions, so depending on which rituals you do, that's going to determine which actions you upgrade, whether it's, revealing tiles, whether it's swapping the location of tiles, or placing and erecting these walls to block off players from getting through, or movement yourself where you get to get your wraith into the right position in order to complete more rituals. And so they're playing this crazy spatial puzzle where they're like, hey, I just want to go do my own thing. And oftentimes you'll see them kind of huddle up in a corner of the board. They'll prop up a wall and they'll be like, shh, I'm trying to complete my rituals. I need to lock you all in my manor forever. I'm sorry. And when I do that, we'll all live happily ever after in this manor, and I will win. And guys, if you get the group, you get the people together, you get them all to learn these factions and play them. This is the kind of experience that you just don't get with any other game. You just don't. You don't get it. It is so unique and so much fun. I'm not even going to go into that last roll because, like I said, I want to cover this game in more detail. I want to do character guides. I want to do getting started guides. If that's something that interests you, please let me know. But there is a 5th character, the Warlock, who's cursing and possessing items. And they're, once again, completely unique than all the other characters. And those win conditions being so linked is so fun. The Paladin wants to slay the spider. The skeletons want to slay the Paladin. The spider wants to gain terror and escape the manor, and the manor wants to lock everybody inside the manor and win. And just that kind of mix and mesh is so much fun when you realize that the skeletons, they simultaneously need to destroy the Paladin, but that means that their goal is also just as important to protect the spider in some ways, because if the spider dies, they lose too. And so everybody's goals are extremely entangled with one another's, and it creates an experience unlike any other. One of the things that I often say is that Vast had to walk, trudge, work in order to allow Root to run and to fly. And I think that this game deserves your attention. And I know it might be kind of difficult to get. I hope you can find a copy. I know that some people will be selling it on BGG often, so you can check that out. I would definitely look for the game to see if you can get a copy of it. Mysterious Manor is a cleaner, more balanced, I would say, version of the Crystal Caverns. The Crystal Caverns has a lot more raw edges. It's also harder to get. It's also charming in my opinion. I love the original game, but I also love this version because it's more available and it's easier to get people into, and I want to play this game more with people. So, Vast the Mysterious Manor, check it out. Now here's the thing, haunted manors can be used for multiple things. One thing that I think might match really, really well is a Grim Masquerade. And that's the next game we are going to talk about. So I've got a link for that right above, and I will see you there.